I really don't care what happens to her at all. I don't care. Like everybody they tiptoe around with this social media, but what y'all don't get is that it be real consequence for y'all little flexes, y'all quick flexes for $300 that you need. It be consequence.
The courtroom was drowning in silence even before anything began. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest and makes breathing feel heavier. As though every single person seated inside sensed that what was about to unfold would leave a mark that could never be erased. And at the center of it all sat Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert, two figures once celebrated for their love story but now separated by bitterness, tension, and a custody battle that had the entire world watching from the outside. Teyana, her face calm but eyes stormy with unspoken pain, sat motionless, while Iman, trying desperately to project strength, carried himself like a man weighed down by invisible chains, his chest rising and falling too fast, his posture betraying the nerves within. There were no cameras allowed in the room, yet that did nothing to stop millions from hanging on to every whispered update, leaked detail, or rumor that slipped through those cold walls. Because this wasn't just another legal dispute, this was a cultural moment. A war over children, over image, over love that had rotted in the public eye. And though lawyers had already presented motions, filings, arguments, and counter-arguments, no one was prepared for the twist that came next. A twist that shifted the ground beneath every person in that room. The calling of their daughter to the stand. The gavel cracked through the heavy air and a hush fell that was more intense than anything that had come before. A hush that even the court reporters felt, their fingers pausing mid-air above keys as they braced to capture history. Teyana's eyes widened just enough to betray her fear, though her face tried to remain unreadable, while Iman's head dipped for a fleeting moment as though he were trying to gather strength for an impact he couldn't dodge. And then the child, young yet deemed old enough by the court to share her truth, walked toward the witness chair, each step fragile, innocent. Weighted with the tragedy of having to speak in such a place, in such a battle, at such an age. Gasps whispered through the crowd, some outraged at the idea of pulling a child into the war zone of adult failures. Others riveted by the knowledge that her words could change everything. And when she sat in that oversized chair, the microphone adjusted for her small frame, her legs dangling above the floor, the judge spoke with a softness absent until now, reminding her that she didn't need to be perfect, rehearsed or polished, only honest, and she nodded, nervous but aware of the responsibility in her heart, her innocence turning into a kind of fragile power. Because when a child speaks from the heart, no amount of legal jargon can stand against it. And so she began to talk, her voice cracking and trembling at times, but never faltering completely, speaking with the kind of rawness only a child can bring, describing her love for her mother, her love for her father, the laughter they once shared, the arguments that shattered it, the silences that replaced smiles, and the nights when she pretended to sleep just to avoid hearing the yelling in the other room. And as her words filled the space, something unexplainable happened. The courtroom, usually filled with interruptions, objections, and rigid decorum, leaned in, no one daring to whisper or cough, because every phrase she uttered pierced deeper than anything the adults had managed to argue in weeks. She painted a picture of birthdays that didn't feel like birthdays anymore, of bedtime stories cut short, of hugs that felt different now, of confusion over why two people she loved so deeply couldn't seem to love each other anymore. And it was in those details, small, ordinary, devastating, that the illusion of glamour and control shattered, exposing the raw truth behind the curated photos and carefully worded statements the world had consumed for years. Teyana sat frozen, her lips trembling as her hands pressed tightly together like she was praying, her eyes locked on her daughter, and though tears didn't fall, every fiber of her body screamed with pain as she listened to words that were both love and blade, words she longed to shield her daughter from but couldn't. Not here, not now. While Iman sat rigid at first, jaw tight, hands gripping his knees, fighting against the rising tide inside him, until the inevitable crack appeared, and the dam broke. His eyes filling, his breath quickening, his body shaking as tears spilled freely down his face. The once confident athlete who had stood before arenas of screaming fans now reduced to a father undone by the truth spoken by his own child. The silence in that courtroom shifted then, no longer heavy with anticipation but thick with respect, heartbreak, empathy, and even the judge, hardened by years of cases, seemed visibly moved. The little girl didn't accuse, didn't dramatize, didn't side with one parent over the other. She only asked for peace, for love, for both her parents in her life. And her words carried more weight than every carefully constructed legal argument made before her. And when she finally finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even reporters who had treated the case like reality television sat frozen, shaken by the innocence that had cut through weeks of posturing and paperwork. The bailiff gently led her away, her small footsteps echoing louder than any attorney's speech. And as she left, Iman covered his face, no longer caring who saw. No longer the celebrity or the basketball player, just a broken father, while Teyana closed her eyes, appearing strong to some, shattered to others, but knowing deep down that those words would echo inside her forever, haunting her, guiding her, reminding her of the true cost of this battle. Outside the courthouse, news spread instantly, social media erupting into chaos with hashtags, debates, praise for the girl's bravery, criticism of the parents, endless threads of opinion, memes, and arguments about whether the child should have been forced into such a role. And though no cameras had captured her testimony, the impact of her words rippled across the globe. But inside those cold walls, the meaning was simpler, clearer, undeniable. No legal strategy, no evidence file, no expert witness had been able to cut to the heart of the matter like she had, with trembling lips and tear-filled eyes, describing the world as she saw it. A world where love had turned into shouting, where home didn't always feel like home, where she longed for peace that seemed impossibly far away. And now the judge carried the weight of that truth, tasked with making a decision that would shape not only where the child lived but the very landscape of her future. And though the case wasn't over, motions still pending, arguments still scheduled, one thing was certain: something had changed forever. Because sometimes the most powerful voices aren't the loudest or the most polished. Sometimes they don't come from lawyers or parents or judges, but from the mouths of children who should never have had to speak them. And in that courtroom, through one trembling testimony, the reminder was etched into everyone present. This wasn't just about custody, visitation, or legal victories. It was about a childhood hanging in the balance, about scars that could last a lifetime, and about the undeniable truth that when innocence speaks, it has the power to bring even the strongest adults to their knees.